Welcome to Mind Body Monday, and thank you so much for joining me. The title of today's session is Dementia is on the Rise and What You Can Do About It. So today you're going to learn one hidden cause for the rising statistics in dementia, and I'm going to share those with you shortly, and 5 keys for lasting brain health that you can put in place today, tomorrow, this week, as soon as you can. Stop and ask yourself a question for a moment. Is your memory failing you? Have you been noticing a decline in your brain function, feeling anxious, depressed, scattered, brain fog, some of the time, all of the time, most of the time? Have you had to use your car keys with its GPS to find where you parked your car in a parking lot? How about people's names? You meet somebody, they introduce themselves, and literally 5 seconds later, what was your name again? Something like that. Yes, all this could be explained away with focus issues. That was a topic of the previous Mind Body Monday, but I want to focus on a crisp, sharp brain and a clear memory. And if any of these apply to you, then this session is for you. So even though heart disease and diabetes and cancer are very, very scary conditions to deal with, they don't take away who you are. And any of us who've had any experience with people in our lives with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, it's very, very troublesome, very painful conditions, because these are very, very different. They take away our memories. They make us forget the people we love, and is a tremendous burden on our families and caregivers. So while dementia is a general term to describe cognitive decline in memory or reasoning or some critical thinking skills, Alzheimer's is specific brain disease that accounts for about 60 to 80% of dementia cases. So I'm not going to take a huge deep dive in this very, very big topic. I do want to leave you with 5 practical things that you can put into your life today, tomorrow, to have the best brain care that you can have for as long as you're gifted with it. I'm just curious. Go ahead and type in the chat. How many of you know anybody or have any experience with treating or with dealing with, as a caregiver, dementia or Alzheimer's disease? How many of you have had first-hand contact with Alzheimer's? I'm just curious to know who here is today in the chat. So go ahead. Yes. So someone has said my mother. Someone's mentioned I have. Thank you for that disclosure. I appreciate that. So this is really, really important for you, and particularly for all of us. Someone's mentioned I've had parents, experience with parents' illness. Someone else has mentioned my mother. Yes, it's very, very painful, extremely painful. And with this, what I'm going to share with you tonight, a person can begin the journey to slow the rate of decline and possibly even reverse this depending on what stage one is at. And just remember, this is the tippy top of an iceberg. It's just an exposure to a very big topic. There's so much that can be done and so much breakthroughs in understanding brain health and the nervous system. I'm going to share that with you shortly. So someone else has written, a father-in-law, couple of friends younger than you are. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. I appreciate that. So we used to think that, the brain, you're born with your brain and it's fixed and you can't really change it. In fact, I remember as a kid in the playground, kids would sort of like knock on your head and say, oh, killed some brain cells, ha ha. Like the understanding, even kids understood that, one could damage brain cells and couldn't bring them back. So, kids can be a little bit mean. But the thinking in the scientific literature as well was that the brain couldn't heal. But exciting research has proven this is really not the case at all. So instead of being doomed to become a statistic or losing our minds as we get older, our brains have a remarkable healing capacity. New neurons are able to be grown all the time because there's this fascinating area of brain research called neuroplasticity. And there is so many breakthroughs happening really all the time. So what I'm going to share with you, you can actually start putting into your life ASAP to boost your brain health, prevent the onset or progression of early dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So let's just step back for a minute and look at least what I consider to be one of the main root causes of this condition. And understanding this will also give you a window into why just throwing medications at this condition is not the only answer. But as a functional medicine practitioner, it's so important to always look under the hood and get very clear what are the main causes of the condition and treat the body in that place. So there are many, many factors that contribute to Alzheimer's disease. But in my opinion, the single factor that's driving this is one thing, and that's called inflammation. That's right, inflammation. It sounds very simple, but let me share with you at least 3 common pathways that causes inflammation in the brain, in the cells of the body, in the nervous system. And then I'm going to share with you my 5 strategies, how to begin to address those. So the first is insulin resistance. In fact, researchers have called Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes, or diabetes of the brain. So this is because if glucose levels are not controlled properly, then this contributes to building up plaque, poor circulation, neuroinflammation, that's a fancy word for inflammation in the nervous system in the brain. And as a result of that, there's a breakdown of degeneration in brain functioning. So that's the first one, is poor glucose regulation causing an inflammation in the brain. The second is leaky gut or poor gut functioning. This is another leading cause of inflammation in the body, and specifically is a key factor for raising the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And part of what causes leaky gut, although there are many causes, is eating processed foods, environmental pollution, toxic stresses, food sensitivities, antibiotics, chronic infections, things like that, because it erodes the barrier in the gut. Then nasties get through into the bloodstream, and they shouldn't be going there. And then through the bloodstream, they travel through the brain. And even though, and the brain-blood barrier, which normally protects the brain from nasties, it's a semi-permeable membrane, but when compromised, even these toxic substances go into the brain and actually damage neurons and cause inflammation, and as a result, a decline in brain functioning. So those are the first 2 reasons. The third reason, what is driving inflammation, is a genetic risk. And hold on here, because it's not fated, okay? So the first is something called an APOE4 gene. And this is an important gene that's related to regulating cholesterol levels and brain functioning. And there's a lot of research that people who have this APOE4 gene are more likely to possibly develop Alzheimer's. As at least half of Alzheimer's patients had this APOE4 gene. And I, in my practice, encourage my patients, if I feel there's a family risk or a history in the family of this of Alzheimer's or dementia, is absolutely find a private lab and get a test for this gene, because I'm a great believer of you can only manage what you can measure. So I'm big into getting tests, be it blood tests, MRIs, CT scans, etc. Specifically, if the outcome of the diagnosis from those tests gleaned can change your decision-making process. If they can, go and get these tests, because you can only manage what you can measure, and then you can have a baseline against future progress. So these are the three causes or three elements that are feeding into inflammation. There are many more, but in my practice, these are the top three that I'm working with, and the top three that are manageable, meaning there's a lot of interventions. I'm going to share 5 of those. So now when you hear the word, genes or genetics, a lot of people think they do. Well, this is not true, because the phenomenal new field of medicine called epigenetics demonstrates time and time again that about 20 to 30% of our health is determined by our genetics. That means 70 to 80% of our health and well-being is determined by lifestyle choices. What that means is what time you go to sleep, the friends you hang out with, the exercise routines you do or don't do, your nutritional program, the foods you eat, the supplements you take, the positive thought processes in your brain. Bottom line is how you show up in life on planet Earth. That contributes to 70 to 80% of your health and well-being. So even though a person may have APOE4 gene and or a positive family history for dementia or Alzheimer's, a person is still very much, you have tremendous power to make great choices every day. And I'm going to share with you some of those. So let's jump into the first of these 5 strategies. These strategies are aimed at supporting the brain, healing the gut, and most importantly, turning off the switches to inflammation. So the first one is eat a healthy brain diet, what I call a happy, healthy brain diet. Now, most people don't know that our brain is actually at least 60% fat. So you want to be eating a fair amount of healthy fats in your diet. And there's so much research done about the importance of fats, specifically omega-3s. And I'm sure most of you have heard of DHA, which is an important omega-3 fat for the brain. It plays a critical role in cognition, in memory, in learning, and things like that. In fact, a PubMed study showed an interesting link between Alzheimer's and even Alzheimer's with APOE4 gene and taking the required doses of omega-3 DHA will actually increase their ability to resist the decline in mental health. So that's really, really important. That's an important piece of research. So I recommend to my patients at least 8 ounces a week, 2 to 3 times a week of omega-3s. It could be in things like salmon or sardines or mackerel or anchovies and possibly even herring. But really you want to have these foods in your diet. Aim for those 8 ounces if you can over a week. I'll also recommend my patients to take supplements. There's a lot of confusion in the world about different supplements. Not all omega-3 supplements are the same. There are many, many differences. And if you look for something high in EPA and DHA, which are the 2 mostly therapeutic fats for the brain, that's what you want to aim for, about 200 to 500 milligrams in general a day. Now, just a word of caution, because I had a patient recently who came to me with a lot of inflammation in the body and quite health conscious. So they're already taking omega-3s and other supplements. But also on my intake, also noted they're taking other medications as well. And not all medications are safe with all supplements. In fact, there's a very specific field and very important to know where there are contraindications. And taking omega-3s is one place you want to be careful. If a person is on any blood thinners like warfarin or whatever, or tendency to bleed easily, it's very important to work with a functional healthcare practitioner to make sure that your EPA or DHA levels are therapeutic for you, but not dangerous, because DHA can cause the blood to thin even more and augment already what your medicine is doing for you. So that it will be a double whammy and not really a good idea. So there's another source of fats that's really important. And aside from the omega-3s, these are called monosaturated fats. And olive oil is a good example. Nuts, seeds, avocados is another good example, because these boost something called acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter and plays a very important role in memory and cognition. Another fat is a good source to add in is MCTs, medium chain trans fatty acids, medium chain fatty acids, which are, an example is coconut oil, or one can get a supplement. So those are good sources of fats. You want a variety of different fats for the brain. And this is one way to eat a happy, healthy brain diet with good spectrum of fats to support your brain and turn off the inflammatory markers. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2, the second thing you can start doing to turn off inflammation in your brain and your body is to balance your sugar levels. Now, I recommend my patients, if you are healthy, at least get a blood test once a year. There's a basic panel to do and then a specific test to do for specific age groups. It's important to get those and get a benchmark. So if sugar levels are poorly managed, then there's an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And this can be really easily avoided. The third topic, well, it's Mind Body Monday. It has to be heal your gut, right? So in a previous Mind Body Monday, I took a deeper dive into leaky gut syndrome. I spoke all about it, what it is, and what to do and what not to do and how to treat it. So you can look on my social media channels to find that replay. But I shared with you what I call the 5R protocol. It was actually developed by the Institute for Functional Medicine, and it stands for remove and repair and restore, repopulate and relax. And this protocol has many steps, which goes towards healing the gut lining, and through that protecting the brain, because I've seen that if there's a leaky gut, there's a leaky brain. So it's really important to heal the gut to heal the brain. Let's look at number 4. Number 4 is movement. You want to be moving your body, and if you can every day for 20 minutes, it's great. If you can't, every other day. If you can't, then 3 times a week. If you can't, every 4 days. If you can't, once a week. But whatever it is, move your body, because movement and exercise stimulate something called nitric acid. And nitric acid really promotes neuroplasticity in the brain, and also is involved in producing an amazing chemical in the brain called BFNF. Yes, medicine loves, turning long words into acronyms that no one really can remember. But this is called brain-derived neurotropic factor, and it's like a miracle grow for the brain. And this BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, really helps growth, connection and growth of neurons in the brain. So what's the best exercise? Most of my patients ask me. The bottom line is the exercise that you can do and enjoy and do consistently. I personally love walking. I'm close to the fields where I live, and I'm out there pretty much every day. I've also been practicing yoga since I was 16 years old, so I have a frequent yoga practice. But there's no right or wrong exercise. In general, it's only right or wrong for you based on your abilities and whatnot. But you can always find a form of exercise that's right for your body, make it easy, make it doable, make it fun, bring a friend, bring some music, whatever, but just move your body. Because stress, again, the pathway that exercise helps is this nitric acid and stimulating neuroplasticity through this brain-derived neuroprotective factor. So it's really important to get into the culture of exercise. Let's look at point number 5. Point number 5 is stress management. Most people don't know that stress actually shrinks the brain, because this is mediated through a chemical called cortisol. And cortisol binds to a certain receptors in a part of our brain called the hippocampus. And this part of our brain is responsible for memory, and it literally wears it down. It wears it out. It's like rust on a car or on metal. So keeping your cortisol levels down through stress management is really, really a major factor in living a happier, more fulfilled and healthy life, most importantly, protecting your brain. So the right stress reduction technique for you may not be the best one for your neighbor or vice versa. I personally like to do meditation, breathing, journaling, and exercise, but everybody has their own method, and it's a good idea just to put that on the map and look for ways where how you can reduce your stress. That being said, it's Mind Body Monday. Let's all sit up in your chairs. Let's take a Mind Body Monday breathing break. As we are talking about stress management, this is the time to really do it. So, sitting up in your chairs, if you can, take a nice deep cleansing breath in through your nose. And as you breathe out, gently pushing your shoulders down and through pursed lips, breathing out and squeezing all the air out of your belly. And breathing in again, a nice deep cleansing breath in. And as you breathe out, relax your shoulders, relax your chest, relax your belly. And then allow yourself just to continue your breathing routine again. Because when you take slow, deep breaths in, you oxygenate your brain, you relax your gut, you stimulate the vagus nerve, which is one of the 12 cranial nerves in the brain, which really supplies the nerve food to our entire digestive system and beyond. And deep breathing stimulates the vagus nerve through the diaphragm, and it's so important to do that. So a great practice is sort of at the beginning and end of your day, before you go to sleep and on waking up, you can just take a few nice deep breaths in. And researchers showed also when you take a few deep breaths in before you sleep, you'll probably sleep more soundly and wake up feeling more refreshed. That is a great segue into take home number 6, which is sleep. So this cannot be underestimated. In fact, a lot of people will say to me, sort of bravado, saying that they, manage with 5.5 hours and manage with 6 hours, and I only got 6 hours. Well, it's really not really serving anybody, because sleep is so critical for the brain, for the body. When we are asleep, the immune system is detoxing and cleansing. The liver is detoxing and cleansing mainly between 1 and 3 a.m. So people who stay up all night, it's really they're interfering with the natural rhythms and cycles of the body. In fact, research has shown that when we are asleep, the brain actually shrinks in size in a healthy way and makes more room for the fluids surrounding the brain to detox and break down products of inflammation and metabolites that the brain has produced in a healthy way during the day, but they have to be cleansed out. In fact, the brain has its own circulatory system called the glymphatic circulation. And when we are in deep sleep, the brain then is able to allow for that cleansing, the detoxification, getting metabolites out of the brain, dumping them into the lymph system, and then cleansing that out in the morning. So that's all done through deep restorative sleep. And part of my bedtime routine is setting an alarm. I have a few soft alarms to remind me to go to bed and start to wind down 15 minutes before, whatever it has. So developing healthy bedtime routines is another way to begin to talk yourself and guide yourself, just as you would your kids or grandchildren. You can do that to yourself as well. So just before I end with the key take-homes for today's session and a challenge for the week, if you missed my intro at the beginning, I want to share with you my long-awaited Heal Your Gut program. It's designed for those of you who want to take a deep dive into healing your gut from the inside out. You get my personal supervision on an 8-line interactive, fun, fast-track way to heal your gut from the inside out. If this interests you, go ahead and type gut health in the chat, and I'm going to come back to you with more info. So let's summarize all of that, okay? So let's summarize the key take-homes. Firstly, it's important to note that there's no sugarcoating the statistics around Alzheimer's disease. There's going to be 166% over the next 30 years in Alzheimer's, and the statistics for 2023 are alarming in terms of how many new cases of Alzheimer's disease is going to be. So instead of living in fear or waiting and hoping for the next wonder drug to come along and do what it's supposed to do, the approach is now to take action, baby steps, micro steps, and deal with the root cause. And one of those root causes is inflammation. I spoke about the 3 drivers of that inflammation. And I also shared with you what I feel is incredibly empowering research in the field of epigenetics, that 20 to 30% of our health and well-being is influenced by genetics, genes, etc., family history. 70 to 80% is influenced by our lifestyle choices. And this is very, very empowering. So let me review the 5 strategies with you. The first is eat a healthy and happy brain diet with a healthy fats. Second, balance your sugar levels. Third, heal your gut, specifically if there's any leaky gut issues. And I spoke about exercise, the importance of why and the mechanism that helps us support the brain. And finally, sleep, getting deep restorative sleep, and how that is important to give the brain and the immune system a body to detox and cleanse itself. So by taking these 5 steps and applying them to your life, your brain and your body will thank you, and you'll feel more confident and at ease and settled in yourself, because you are being proactive in a very meaningful way. Not only will help your brain, but will help everything about your health and well-being. So the weekly challenge is to choose just one item from these 5 strategies. And then for this week, go ahead and advance it by just a minimum of 1 inch. That's right. Very often my patients want to do everything all in one go, and they'll end up getting overwhelmed and not doing anything. So it's so important just to make small incremental changes. In fact, so small and so incremental, you'll think that's hardly anything. And that has lastability, if there's such a word, because the resistance is low to that. So from these 5, go ahead, and the invitation for the challenge, and you can always send me an email and let me know how you're getting along. And if you in my 1445 WhatsApp group, you can post some of your successes in there too for everybody to enjoy and get some support in. So the challenge is choosing one and making at least 1 small inch of change daily or once a week until we meet on Mind Body Monday next week. Thank you all for joining me. And just remember that Mind Body Monday is all about self-care, being the heart of healthcare. All you need to do is take 1 small step in the direction of health and healing in mind, body, and soul. And I'll see you next week.